So yeah, we just got back from watching a stage play of Frankenstein. It was recorded in London a few days ago, I think, or I don't know, I'm sure
Years.
well, years ago, really.
Yeah, 2011.
Oh, really? and and they just showed and it started Benedict Cumberbatch as Frankenstein's monster, and who played Frankenstein again?
Johnny Lee Miller.
Yeah.
You know him as the other Sherlock from Elementary.
I've never watched Sherlock. Well, anyway, so this was
they both played Sherlock in like two different series, but that's that's kind of interesting that they both been cast as Sherlock Holmes for like two different series, but here they are together. The whole thing was that, like one night Benedict Cumberbatch would play the creature, which we saw, and another night, the two people who played Frankenstein and the monster would ultimately switch roles, so Benedict Cumberbatch would play Frankenstein. We watched the one with Cumberbatch as the creature, and I've been wanting to watch this for a long time. Like when I first heard that this was happening, I'm like a huge fan of like the original Frankenstein movie and the story. Basically.
Well, there's like literally hundreds of Frankenstein movies, even like
dating
all the way back to like 1910s, even back in the 1910s when there was a silent era of films. I remember like James Rolfe was talking for Monster Madness about like the back in the 1910s or early 1920s they had before even the Hammer films existed. They had like black and white 20-minute short films of Frankenstein. It was considered too grotesque for the audience and shocking because it showed dead things.
Oh yeah,
I remember that. Yeah, so yeah, I remember back in high school, I read one version of the Frankenstein book. I think it might have been the abridged version, and I saw like 2 or 3 different versions of the movie in school, and then there's
I've seen like hundreds of them. The one I remember, I think a lot of people remember fondly is the Boris Karloff one from the 31.
Yeah, Hammer films. Hammer, right?
That was Universal.
Oh, it was Universal?
Hammer Films also did one which was great with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee, yeah. He was an awesome actor.
Which had its own set of series.
Yeah. So
this one is, I think, this one, I'm thinking they were trying to lean closer to the novel, as like the creature is learning more human behavior and starts mimicking that human behavior a little more than what you originally see in like other renditions.
Some things I think that they definitely did for this movie was they pretty much requires you to have knowledge of the book or movie in order to understand what's going on, because it abridges a lot. Even though it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, in order to they have to abridge a lot of what was said in the novel. So like I remember the novel or in the version of the novel I read, it starts off when he's in some Arctic tundra. I think it's in Antarctica or Siberia or something like that. Do you remember where it was?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it starts off that he's Frankenstein, the doctor, is dying of exhaustion. He gets found by some sailors on a ship who and then he tells his story through a flashback. That's the movie I remember. And in this movie, we don't see him in the Arctic tundra till the very end. So it's not told in flashbacks. Also, so and like there's no one like telling you what's going on here, what's going on there. So it pretty much requires you with the novel.
Well, it's a stage play.
Yeah, it's a stage play, exactly. But I guess there's assuming that Frankenstein's so popular, everyone knows about it. But still, there are some things that it would have been helpful if they elaborated on just a teeny bit.
Well, there are scenes that you might remember from if you've seen the original movie, you know that there's a blind man.
What's his name, man?
I don't remember his name either.
Yeah, and in the original book and the movie version I saw, he also had a little girl who was like 6 or 7 years old, and in the movie I saw, she looked up to him, and in the movie version, we see everything from her perspective, and since she's a little girl, she's a child, she represents innocence, she's untainted by bigotry and hatred, so she isn't afraid of the monster, just like the blind man isn't afraid of him either, because he can't see him because he's blind. So, in this version, the little girl doesn't exist for some reason, I guess.
The little girl is actually now, she's replaced with William Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein's brother.
No, he was in the original novel as well.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, he was. Remember, he's the main character that's killed, and because what I thought that they were going to do was since they didn't have the little girl, they would try and maybe like shake things up a bit and like try to add their own original flavor to the movie, which I think it's a good adaptation. But I think a really good idea would be like to combine the characteristics of the two characters. William Frankenstein, the 10-year-old son of Frankenstein, who's well, the kid who played him looked like he was around 8 to 10 years old. In the novel, he's 6. So obviously, because I guess they couldn't get a child that young to play him because it would be too complicated. Anyway, so in the novel, what happens is William Frankenstein sees him. He's kind of scared of him, but he's still just a little kid, and he doesn't know any better. And after hearing who he is, the kid, Frankenstein's monster, begs him for information. So he shakes him a bit, and because he shakes him too hard, he inadvertently kills him, completely by accident. I think what they could have done, and in this version, what happens is when he sees the monster, William Frankenstein gets scared right away and starts screaming. I think it would have been a cool adaptation if they combine the two characters, the little girl and him, and make him and see everything from his perspective, where he's like, "Oh, hello there, sir," and he's not tainted by bigotry and the hatred of how he looks and the monster looks because he's just a child. I think if they just done a little more, like give this play its own flavor. I mean, it's still good. It's well acted and it's good as play, but they didn't do enough, in my opinion, to give it its own identity.
Well, I think, yeah. Well, I think personally it was my favorite adaptation of the original Frankenstein story, mainly because I don't think we get to see too much of the creature's perspective. I think that's what I think they were looking for. They were trying to go for the creature's perspective.
Yeah, one thing they did do, which I think was a good change, was in the book, the Frankenstein's monster. Sorry. Frankenstein's monster, when he first sees the couple, the man, the woman, the little girl, and the blind man, he spies on them for a year, and he learns through spying on them what words mean, what different mannerisms are, and it isn't until a year goes by that he finally manages to muster the courage to talk to the blind man and the little girl. And in the movie version and the book version, he only speaks them knows them for like a couple hours until the blind man's son and his wife come in and they beat him. They try and kill him because they think he's a monster. In this version of the adaptation, he spends an entire year with the blind man.
And inadvertently helps.
Yeah, and helps them out. And that's why I think, like I said, there were some things that they didn't really explain. Like in the book, we see how he says he's helping them out, whereas in this play, we just hear about how he's helping them out, but we never see him do anything helpful. So we just have to imagine him doing it, which I really think if there was like an announcer or like if there was like a pre-recording of Benedict Cumberbatch saying, "I'm going to help them out," so just like a minute of
I don't think so.
I just think like I said, unless you've read the book and you know he's helping them out.
Dude, it's a stage play.
But it just like I said, it's a good adaptation. But unless you know the source material, it's not going to click with you.
Well, I think stage play is so much different from what we have to. You kind of have to interpret it from from like the dialogue, the staging, the set. The setting,
which is really good. So we'll get that. Just one thing. Like I said, in this version, they changed some things. He spends an entire year talking with this blind man who teaches him words and stuff on his own volition instead of spying on them. He teaches them, and then after he tries to muster the courage to meet these people, he says, "I promise you." The blind man says, "I promise you, my son won't hate you just because of how you look." And then when the son does hate him and because of how he looks and tries to kill him, he gets revenge on them by burning them alive and lighting their house on fire. So that wasn't on the original novel. I think it goes to show how this version they wanted to show how he doesn't know who to trust. So when someone says "trust me," he puts all of his faith in someone who says "trust me," and every single person who's told him to trust him in this play and the book has betrayed him.
Yeah, that's sort of like the instinct that the creature brings out because he himself starts to learn how to hate as much as. Yeah. Anyone else because he himself
the whole nurture versus nature thing, and like I said, and what's interesting was in the book, I don't think this happened where he set the house on fire. Did he do that in the book?
I don't remember.
I don't think so. But for this adaptation, for the blind man who's nice to him for an entire year, for him to kill him on a whim by lighting his house on fire and killing the entire family on a whim, just because they be even the old man who was nice to him. I think that was their way. That was their way of showing how this Frankenstein, this version, was a lot more angry and a lot more heartbroken, and a lot more eager to act out on his instincts than he is to think things rationally. Because like this guy in this version, he's known this guy for an entire year. He's been his best friend, only friend for an entire year. Everyone else has hated him and beat him, tried to kill him. And yet he in the second he says trust me, and then he finds out that the people the blind man's son and his wife tried to kill him. He lights them on fire. I think that was, I don't know, that was a good way of like mixing things up a notch. But
well,
it's hit or miss. It'll click with some people, and some people say, "Why is he killing the old man? The old man was his friend." So it's all hit or miss.
all right, but once we get Frankenstein and the creature on screen together, I feel like that's
I
where
mean, for the second time, for the first or second time.
the moment where they first talk to each other.
Oh, so like after they meet, like because the first time they meet.
The first time is when the creature gets birthed out, and that scene is like a very, it's very interesting to see it happen like a lot differently, because because this creature, he acts like how most infants would at their first inception. They would start crawling, and eventually they would learn how to walk gradually.
It was a bit prolonged. It lasted like 10-15 minutes at least, but
the thing is, you kind of had to be there to just kind of experience how it is.
I mean, it was good acting though. Don't get me wrong. Where the play was only 2.5 hours long, and for them to spend like 10-12 minutes on him just crawling around and like and stuff, I don't know. Like I said, it was good acting.
The thing is, it's in the UK, and everything has to be kind of very Shakespeare-y.
Yeah.
Because and honestly, for those of you who are still used to like the Boris Karloff Frankenstein type of thing, that this is a more cerebral type of Frankenstein. The story is leaning towards more how about how man is able to man is able to do with the experiments that they do and what they create and it's that sort of thing. If you've seen other movies that kind of convey that, like, I don't know, maybe Godzilla or something, you kind of get that feeling from this movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, they meet. So when they meet and they first talk, Frankenstein is very contradicting. It's he's contradicted by the fact that he created this creature that knows how to learn and speak on a whim, learn the same way humans do, but he's repulsed at what it looks, what it's recently done, and I think that's where you get some. I remember a lot of the quotes from there, because
there's that book he was quoting from
Paradise Lost.
Yeah, Paradise Lost. Yeah, it was because the old man taught him Paradise Lost and all this stuff, and the blind man. So yeah,
and the creature says
he quotes Paradise Lost.
Yeah, he symbolizes he kind of, what is it? He sees things in Satan's perspective. Cast out.
Yeah, Satan was an angel that was cast out for stupid reasons or something like that. I don't remember that. I don't think I read that book in a long time.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, Satan was originally an angel that was cast out for messing with something, and
just sent to hell for disrupting the order of man, the laws of man, and eventually we get to another scene here's where it goes from, here's where it goes, and I think this is where I think it lost you for a bit. They started from a perspective of the creature, then it became then gradually it became Frankenstein's perspective.
Yeah. And in the books, Frankenstein kills a lot more people, I think. In this one, he only kills 2 people. I think he kills in the books and the movie version I saw, he kills Dr. Frankenstein's best friend Henry. I think his name was Henry, and he also kills Frankenstein's father. So I guess they just didn't have time for that because, like I said, this play was only 2 hours and 20 minutes. So but he kills 5 people. Right? He kills the
burns,
boy.
like,
He
he
burns
burns
the
the
house down.
family.
Kills the blind man and the blind man's son and his wife. And yeah, so he still kills a lot of people, but they're not the same people. And anyway. One thing I think they could have done better was with casting, and we're gonna so yeah, the casting was good. The acting was all good, but the casting.
I think I think the real highlight was just Cumberbatch
Yeah.
as the creature,
course.
and of course Johnny Lee Miller as Frankenstein.
Yeah, like I said earlier, Will Frankenstein in the book and the movie version I saw, he was 6 years old. Whereas in this version, they don't say how old he is, but he looked to be around 10 to 12. The kid who played him. Like I said, obviously they couldn't. A 6-year-old would probably be too stage fright to be like doing all this stuff. So I guess they wanted someone who was a little older. At the same time, I think that helps because this version of Will isn't young and naive. This version of Will is afraid of the monster when he first sees him. He's not just, oh my god. He's not just, oh, you're different. You look really cool or something like that.
I think that's what everyone's sort of reaction is, except for like.
Yeah, I mean, when you're really young, like 6, then things that look weird and strange are cool to you. But when you're like 10 or 12, you start. That's when you're into your adolescence phase, and that's when you become all down and drabby so I think the casting was good for the character. So for that particular character, the casting was good, even though he wasn't the same age as he was in the book. But given the fact that his personality is different, I think that was a good choice. Casting came from age 10 to 12 as opposed to a 6-year-old.
Again, take this with a grain of salt. This is the National Theater, and they cap. I guess like they cap. I don't know. The casting is like often like very, very kind of. I don't know how they do casting. They did the casting with this, but like, but like I think they really wanted Cumberbatch and Miller in the role. I think Miller because like his stage presence, Cumberbatch because.
One thing I think they like I said, this wasn't really casting. This was more of a. I wouldn't say I'm not sure if this was casting or not, but the main character, the father of Frankenstein's wife or to-be wife, he's
he's supposed to be Frankenstein's father.
No, wasn't he the father of the wife, or was he supposed to be
Frankenstein's
father?
Here's where things get confusing. Well, Victor Frankenstein is marrying his cousin Elizabeth.
Oh yeah,
and
he's black,
and his father
is black.
And
which, look, I get it. It's a play. It doesn't have to make sense. This is a play about zombies and reviving the dead. I don't care. But there was one thing. Even if you take apart the fact that it's ridiculous how they were trying to be diverse and all that stuff, I think even if you want to hire a black guy to be Frankenstein's father, fine. But at least get one who sounds the part. This guy had it wasn't very thick, but he had a very noticeable Jamaican or Dominican accent, and you could tell he was trying to speak loudly and very outgoing voice and be very like hi ho like that. But no matter how loud he talked, no matter how sturdy he was, he still sounded somewhat. He had a noticeable Jamaican or Cuban Dominican accent. And this guy is supposed to be German, and you're giving him
everyone in the character, no matter where they were, like they all had English accents.
Yeah, except this guy who sounded somewhat Jamaican. So.
I think the moment like when the creature is like in English country. That like the English accent gets a little more noticeable.
Yeah.